Hey, what's cracking, everyone? So Hillary Clinton, pretty dumb cunt in general. Who told her it was a good idea to go after Pepe a week ago? An astrologer could have predicted that this was not going to end well. This country, 20 trillion in debt, sleepwalking into a cold war with Russia over the Ukraine, Islamism becoming more and more prevalent throughout Western Europe, a shitty, horrible economy with tens of millions of people who can't find work in. And the political class, the political establishment, wants you to believe that internet memes are the great problem of your life. Complete fucking nonsense. Her collapse from grace, and I mean that literally. Her dumbass can't even get into a van without Secret Service members dragging her into it. I can't think of anything else that demonstrates so clearly how far and away removed she is as a person and as a candidate from the general people. Uh, People who worry about Pepe memes sometimes being used by white supremacists and other schmucks like that are people who have nothing in life to worry about at all. So I just wanted to throw this video out there, um, just to kind of do a quick little overview and my own personal observations about this campaign and the dive off of a cliff that Clinton's kind of gone off of. Um, so after the conventions, the lamestream media, aka the propaganda arm of the Democratic Party, aka globalist shitheads who wouldn't give a starving man a meal if it meant they had to be truthful for 5 minutes on television, most likely. They have consistently tried to paint Donald Trump as, I think, three things when you kind of boil it down. One is unhinged, two is unqualified, three is a bigot. Now, the golden rule, I think, of the regressive left is that they always project. It's everything they call you. It's what they fear about themselves way more. When they call you a racist or a misogynist or whatever ism, it's because they at some point probably were stupid enough to buy into crap like that. So they just want to blame it on someone else, so nobody notices that they're the ones with the problems. Uh, Regressive leftists, uh, overwhelmingly, from my anecdotal experience, come from upper middle class or just middle class, well off backgrounds. Um, they're not people who have any real challenges, ever really put um, their name on the line, if you will. And I don't want to make this too much about character and just attack people's characters because I've never had to worry about hunger or poverty or anything like that at all. But I bring up that observation because it is simple and it explains a lot of why SJWs operate the way they do and why the media operates the way it does. The three things I mentioned, unhinged, unqualified, and bigoted, really describe Hillary Clinton perfectly. I think when you think about it. So you start with unhinged, right? There's a great book that I just finished. I wish I had it on me when I was recording this. It's called Crisis of Character by Gary Bryan. Bryan, I think his last name is pronounced. Bryan is a former Secret Service guy who worked in the White House during the Clinton presidency back in the 90s. I really recommend people read this. I personally don't think he's being dishonest. I've got every reason to think he's being truthful. Let me know if I should be doubting this guy, if he's not that reliable of a source of information. But yeah, reading about it and wow, Clinton, Hillary is such a cunt. I keep going back to that word. I don't know how else to describe cunty Clinton. She would berate her staff constantly, or her angry, petulant outbursts at people. Um, and you might think, well, this is back in the 90s, so has things changed? I don't think so. She said a while ago that she wants to treat internal security breaches, um, email leaks, by unknown hackers as the same, as equivalent to a military attack on our country, and that she would use the military to retaliate against who she thinks is responsible, which is Russia, apparently. Never mind the fact that all this talk about Russia and Putin hacking into the DMC is just a dumb fucking cover, so people don't want to talk about what's actually in those emails. Never mind that. Never mind the fact that there is no evidence that I'm aware of that these hacks and the leaks are tied to the Russian government at all. I don't even think there's, I don't even think there's evidence to suggest that the people or the person who's leaking this stuff out to Guccifer and to WikiLeaks, that they're even in Russia. And just because they're in Russia doesn't mean the Russian government's doing anything to encourage them at all. So she would use this internal security breach as a casus belli to risk nuclear war over fucking emails. This is what you're going to get if you vote Clinton, everybody. A person who casually tosses around the threat of war with a nuclear power and a pretty major world power at that, and a power that, frankly, there's no reason for the United States to have major confrontations with. And like there's no interests of the American people that are at odds with Russia, none whatsoever. I understand people in Europe, they're a bit more edgy about that, and I can sympathize. But why are we trying to bring back the Cold War? This is not the '80s anymore. Nobody's worried about global communism taking over. We're worried about radical jihadism. Like that's the threat. That's what's endangering modern society. So you talk about the second thing, unqualified. You think this would be a hard angle to be turned around against the Clinton machine? She's been a senator. She was carpetbagged. She's been a secretary of state. Still carpetbagged. What's Trump got to say about his political experience? Nothing. And in this election cycle, that is an amazing strength. He doesn't have any skeletons in his closet. There's no dirt to dig up. And if they try to go by his offhanded comments as a public, as a citizen, well then that's going to force people in their minds to compare it to Clinton. And that's a horrible idea for them, because when you start to look at the Clinton's qualifications, they'll turn off as many people as they attract. Her experiences have left no skill at statescraft. She's a horribly incompetent person. She was the key person who pushed for the intervention in Libya, which is going to affect European society at least for the next 100 years. And I'm not exaggerating when you think about what the effects of having all these large Muslim groups in Europe is going to be. It's never going to be an open and relatively free society again. I don't personally think. She had in hand in arming the so-called moderate Syrian rebels, who end up just as fucking crazy, just as extreme. And it's been a while since I read up on this. An offshoot of Al Qaeda, just like arming Al Qaeda, really. Like the one group of people you shouldn't arm. So the more you look into her, background, especially foreign policy, the more people, are going to get pushed away from that, because they'll just see how incompetent, her legacy is going to be. And of course, health. There's her health. You got Trump running around like a fucking, prize horse, and seems to get tired. Can fly to Mexico, fly to Arizona, within a few hours of those visits. And it's only on Jimmy Kimmel 2 nights ago that I ever noticed that his voice is actually starting to give out from doing all of these rallies. So yeah, Hillary's health is a fucking mess, and she's coughing up phlegm into glasses of water. She can't talk for more than 30 minutes without hacking a lung. They're trying to say it's pneumonia, like it's no big deal, like that doesn't take weeks to fucking recover from, like that's not a very terrible thing for, especially an elderly person, to have. It can result in a lot of risks, and I think has quite a few deaths as well. I don't personally believe that at all, even if it is true. Because the dumbasses who thought that it went up, they didn't think about that excuse all the way through, considering she would take a staged photo with a little girl that she was getting out of her daughter's apartment with uh, on 9/11 after she collapsed into a fucking van. So if she's got pneumonia, she just put that little fucking girl's life at risk like nobody's business. And of course, the whole thing was staged because Secret Service would never let anyone get that close to her in the first place, this close to the fucking election. Um, so she thought about it and thought this would be a good idea. She's not very qualified. And the third angle, the bigoted bullshit, that's obviously harder for Trump supporters, such as myself, to dispel. It's been the left's trump card, pun very intended, for years and years, probably since way before I was born. But like any word or any phrase that gets used too often, the meaning and the weight of it starts to weaken. It starts to dilute. From what you can see of the mainstream media, they are clearly not prepared for this. It's the same as if they've been using steroids to win every fight, and just in the last 2 years or so, suddenly it's turning into a placebo. It doesn't actually produce a change. People who cry about bigotry, people care about bigotry. Many people do. Many white people do, but you keep crying wolf too many times, and soon enough nobody's gonna fucking believe you, and nobody's gonna show up. So to Trump's credit, he's done a better job than any Republican candidate I can think of really making the mainstream media look pretty fucking dumb. When he goes and meets with Nieto down in Mexico, when he goes to that black church in Detroit, I think he's in Little Haiti down in Florida yesterday. And they try to paint this as like racism, and just they look even more ridiculous. It's like clearly this is not the case. And as far as sexism goes, I mean, putting out a paleocons like myself, like okay, I'm not that excited about the details of it, of the policy, but putting out assistance for childcare for families. I'll probably do another video on that because it's not the greatest, but if I have to go with something, if I have to involve the government somewhat, that probably would be acceptable. And Hillary, meanwhile, calls like 1 out of 4 people in this country deplorable, racist, white supremacists, Pepe memesters, all the buzzwords that trigger the college crowd. There's the DNC calling Hispanic voters the Taco Bowl. I'd love to know what else Hillary Clinton has personally said on those fucking emails. Come on, Assange, pull through, finish, put the death blow in, final nail. Come on. So it's not so much that this can be turned around the same way I think the other two your real criticisms can, unfit and unqualified. But I think that the real incompetence from the Clinton machine, it's at least neutering a bit. It's not as sharp as it used to be. So yeah, just a pretty short video. I just wanted to try this YouTube stuff out and put some thoughts out there. Take care of yourself. Check in with you later.